that was some good ass writing. I like the only two complaint I've got, I think, really is the Minicin 1.0 as a whole across like the prologue and all three chapter. There's not really enough build up with between MC and Barry. I felt like it was a bit of a rush. We didn't really get as emotionally attached to Barry's capture. The other one is probably chapter 1 with Psyche as well. I felt like they could have done a bit more in terms of building that up with Psyche as well. She didn't really get much screen time, I think, towards the second half. It was a lot of she was just stuck in the house waiting for her doom. So that's really the only two thing I could fault for like 1.0, and that's also being like really nitpicky. Consider again, launch story spread across 10, 12 hours. I think if I count my stream, it's probably like more closer to 15. So like, consider that this was launch story, 15 hours. As I said, easily, this is better than any of the 1.0 story I've played in any of the gacha game in the past couple of years. This is actually one where, yes, a lot of the early bits in every chapter was always a bit of a slog, and Snow being very inappropriately trying to be funny most of the time and just end up being straight up annoying. But fuck, man, when you get to like the peak of the story, it's not an emotional peak because this game doesn't have a high production value. There's no like AAA cinematic, there's no like really good looking either in-game rendering or CG, there's no like, you know, great storyboarding that forms, you know, great framing and cinematic, there's no like very memorable music, but just the overall plot, when it clicks, fuck, it hits like a truck. There is other, like most of the gacha story, you kind of have to like, when the peak comes, you kind of have to think about, oh yeah, that's kind of what happened, and the game has to be a bit more obvious to try to lay them out because they won't properly construct it in a way that everyone could understand. But in this game, when it hits the end of every chapter, things just comes back, like things that don't seem like it matters throughout that chapter just all of a sudden piece together like a puzzle. It clicks and then it just hits you like a fucking truck. And part of that is because they have really good structure, like they structure the way that they foreshadow a lot of things throughout the chapter. And like chapter 3 is immediately very obvious. Like once you go through the first two chapters, you kind of notice their pattern, you know, with the death flag, a lot of foreshadowing, things that happen. So I think what caught me most off guard at the end was really like the identity between Fantasio and Blues being switched. Like that was not, there was zero foreshadowing on that. I don't think anyone could actually guess that. But like the whole lead up to it was very obvious where they came from. So like, yeah, I don't, man, fuck, man, the story is just so good. Anyone, as I said many times in this stream, anyone that called this game mid or this story mid just haven't fucking played it properly, or they've played it and they never really sat down and digested it properly. Because if this is mid, then you might as well call 80% of the gacha game out there the story trash. Like, this is not mid. This is fucking like a 9 out of 10 in terms of writing. If you put in presentation, then yeah, you drag this down to like, I don't know, a 6 or 7 because everything is kind of janky. But in terms of writing, this is right up there with a lot of games that I've played, and I don't know how anyone can call this mid. If you call it mid, you just haven't read through it or understood it properly or thought about it, what it is. Anyway, that wasn't as heavy as I thought. I thought it was more of a bittersweet ending, and I think Rhythm summed it up really well. There's a lot of things in life that we can't control. It's no point really dwindling on things that is beyond our control anyway, so we might as well move forward. And it was good that she never found out she was the one that killed her brother. And you know, again, true bro, kudos to Fantasio. To me, like, he was the real standout bro. And you know, you might argue and say, well, he's just some random dude that Blues meet in the lab, and why the fact that he goes so far for it. But I think in my view, it actually makes sense. Like, he was like, those two, like Blue was the only thing that helped him realize that he was more than just a monster, as he said. So, you know, it kind of lifted him up from the depth of hell. So in a sense, like, Blues was the only thing he's got too. Like, you know, it was his only family. So I could see his logic behind it too, the way he acted and why he kind of fulfills Blue's wish. Blue probably didn't have to like be written out that way. I don't feel like the story would have been less impactful if Fantasio and Blue swap role, as in Blue didn't really get killed and it was Fantasio that got killed, and Blue kind of still like didn't have to tell a lie and just tell Rhythm to live on, and he kind of pissed off, and that kind of works too. So I guess the writer did it in such a way so that they could make the story more tragic, but I do also feel like that it didn't really like it wouldn't really have changed the outcome if Blue was the one that survived at the end and he kind of just went into a faraway land. Like the lie didn't have to be told. They didn't have to go, you know, the way to, and that's probably why it was never foreshadowed. I don't think the writer really have a good way to slot that in. So yeah, I don't know what else to add. I mean, I am just very impressed. I played DNA as a filler game because all the other games are basically I've caught up today and waiting for new content and new story. And I mean, I still play them off stream, but it's not very fun streaming just me doing the dailies and getting resources and building factories and, you know, killing other random stuff just so I get pool currency. So I do try to find some story content to play, and DNA was always going to be just a filler. But you know what? I think this is going to be a mainstay. As I said, I'm going to play this for as long as we're going to get to the point where we burn down the whole freaking empire and take down the Forsaken with us at the same time. It's a shame that they're going to move to a 3-monthly basis for story update. I think we're not gonna, once we up to date, or once I'm up to date, I don't think we're gonna get any more story content until early next year. And it's a sign that this game isn't in its best, healthiest state in terms of financial and revenue. Let's not pretend that, you know, it's free. You know, it doesn't cost anything to make a game. It does. You can't really get better production quality if they're not getting the money, so how are they going to reinvest back into it? So the way that they choose to improve the gameplay, shorten the patch cycle by 2 weeks, but only have a story every 3 months, I understand. Like I can support it if it means that this story can continue. So we're not going to see too much of it in terms of story content. I might have other gameplay content planned for this game. Really depends what the end game is like. If they're adding more co-op stuff, like raid and whatnot in general, I know that there's skill systems, so they might improve on that. If that's the focus going forward for this game, like I'll definitely play it, and I think there's content to be made. And as for the story, we'll just play it as soon as it comes out. I mean, you know, one story patch every 3 months is not a lot, so I guess the playlist will be somewhat lonely once I catch up to date going forward. But I really do hope that this game don't EOS and actually keeps going. I think it deserves a chance, just like how Warframe deserves a chance. So does this game. Yeah, that's it. I'm gonna wrap it up.